And how's the situation out there, Mr. Padmanabhan, as
Well, I'm in Pittsburgh. And there was a lot of rains here.
Just wanted to tell you guys we are live.
okay.
Hello and welcome. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I'm Ela Smetacek. I'm a conservationist from Uttarakhand, and I work towards conservation of Uttarakhand's forests. We all, this day and age, are extremely concerned about global warming. And today I have two really very interesting guests who are going to work constructively to educate us all on the global warming that we're facing, what we should expect to see in the next few years, and what are the constructive policies and actions that we can personally and internationally take forward. So I'm going to introduce both our speakers today. So there's a really interesting author that we're going to be talking about. So Mr. Padu S.Padmanabhan was the former program director of the Southeast Asia Region Initiative for Energy, SARI as it is called, the senior energy advisor for USAID. And he has written a very interesting book called, could you please tell me about your book?
The title of the book, Ella, is called First Fuel.
First Fuel. So without wasting much time, I'm going to quickly introduce Vikas Sharma. He's the director and chief executive center for strategy and leadership. He is the president of the India-Canada Commerce India chapter. He's also president of H2 Life Foundation. In addition, he's editor of business and policy of Bharat Khabar, a national executive member of the Newspaper Association of India. Mr. Vikas Sharma has a very, very far-reaching connect with India's environmental problems, and his policies have been making great change. So we are going to start off with Mr. Padmanabhan. I'd like to first of all ask you, sir, what are the 5 things that you feel India should personally work on an immediate 5-year plan? And how should we implement them?
Well, before I answer your question, I'd like to make a very brief statement for the audience, Ella. Question I would like to ask is, where would India's energy journey lead us in the next 30 years? As we all know, the climate change challenge is this century's most dangerous and intractable threat. It is dangerous because it places health, security, safety, and our economic well-being at risk. And it's intractable because it's largely due to the emission of carbon dioxide from fuels. 70% of the primary energy in India is met through fossil fuels, and 60% of electricity is made from fossil fuels, and they all release carbon dioxide in their combustion. Now, coming to your question, Ella, I would like to answer it in the context of my book, First Fuel. I'm often asked this question: what does the title First Fuel mean, and how does it relate to energy efficiency? If you really see, we have saved more energy in the last many years than we have got from fossil fuels or from renewables. In fact, the energy saved quantitatively is greater. And that's why I call energy efficiency the first fuel. Does this mean we are efficient? Actually, we consume more energy per unit of GDP than many developed and some developing countries. It means energy intensity on the average is high, or conversely, our energy productivity is low, but it's improving. Between 1990 and 2015, India's energy productivity improved by 78%. By way of contrast and comparison, China's energy efficiency improved by 205%. So there's a lot of catching up to do. Now, to answer your question, 5 areas. The 5 areas where I think we have opportunities for energy efficient systems and the ease at which it can be implemented are the industrial sector. Industrial sector contributes to almost 60%, or 40% of our total primary energy. Our large-scale industry is generally very efficient compared to international standards. Our cement industry is as good as any, and so is some of our large industries. But the opportunities lie greatly in the MSME sector, where it is typically inefficient because of the antiquated technologies and so on. And here's where I think we need to focus in demonstrating energy efficiency practices in MSME sectors and build capacity in the workers and in the management and so on, as well as access to finance. The second sector is the building sector. The building sector has done quite well from one point of view. India has the second largest number of green buildings in the world. We started with just 20,000 square feet of green buildings in the early 2000s. Today, we are approximately 7.8 billion square feet, and we are fast moving towards 10 billion square feet. So in a sense, the building sector has demonstration of energy efficient systems. But having said that, we must realize that only 30% of the buildings today will be there in the year 2030. We have yet to build the remaining 70%. So there's a great opportunity in the building sector. And the opportunity lies in enhancing our building codes, in ensuring their compliance, and ensuring that people follow the right practices and principles as far as efficiency in the building sector is concerned. The third sector is the farm sector. Here, the opportunity lies in water management and conservation. If you save water, you save energy. They are inextricably linked, water and energy. And almost 80% or maybe even higher, 85% of the total water consumed, fresh water consumed, is consumed in agriculture. And about 15 to 20% of our energy is consumed in agriculture. So co-management of water and energy in the farm sector would lead to savings both in energy and in water. The fifth sector is a power sector. The power sector is a huge consumer of energy. It consumes almost 60% or 70% of our coal, and has actually contributed a lot to the, is actually a real source for greenhouse gas emissions. And in the power sector, the opportunities lie in every part of the cycle, of the power energy cycle, in generation, in distribution, and in end use. For every 1 unit of electricity we consume, 5 units equivalent of fuel is consumed in the thermal power sector, in the thermal power generation. So there's huge opportunity in reducing energy use in power generation, in power transmission, power distribution, and in end use. And the power sector represents a great opportunity to do so. So let me end here. These were the 5 sectors where the opportunities lie and where I think systems need to be introduced to save energy.
Thank you. This is such a rich, deep topic. I don't think we'll ever be able to do justice to it in 45 minutes. But you know, your book, I believe, is very entertaining as well. What is the main focus for? What is the goal that you feel you aim to, to target when you wrote the book? What can a person take away from it? The average person, not perhaps a policymaker, not perhaps a scientist. What would the average person take away from the book?
Ela, that's a great question. See, when you enter a bookshop, there's endless rows of books on energy. So what makes this book stand out in contrast to the books already there? Most of the books on energy are largely on the supply side of the energy equation. So you have books on oil and international oil situation. You have books on coal and India's coal situation. You have books on the power sector reform. So it's all on the supply side of the equation. There are very few books on the demand side of the equation. That is, how is energy used? How efficiently or inefficiently it is used? And if at all there are any books, they're largely technical books, treatises on energy audits, treatises on boilers, on furnaces, and so on. But there's very few books which really talk to you about the process which India took since the 70s in ushering energy efficiency in the country. So this entire process, the entire evolution of energy efficiency, how it happened, who are the heroes, who are the unsung heroes, who are the institutions, what role they played, what were the policies of those days, how did those policies evolve, all of this mentioned, told in a very engaging manner, in a manner in which the layman can understand. The purpose and objective was really to enthuse the younger generation that yes, we have made some progress in efficiency. Energy efficiency is our first fuel. We need to build on the progress, and we can do it this way by actually learning from the past. And in the past, there were unsung heroes, institutions, there were anecdotes, and so on and so forth, which the common person can understand and relish and enjoy and actually learn from it. As somebody said, if you have to move in the future in a particular direction, you have to understand your past. And this is the past, the unraveling of the past, which tells you what we have done in the energy efficiency journey.
Very interesting. Do you feel that the Indian government could take away some very constructive, guidance from this book as well?
Yes, the Indian government, I think, would, and already the Indian government has done a lot. In fact, there's a lot of description in the book about what government agencies have done in the past. India was, for instance, the first country in the world, in the developing world for sure, to have institutionalized energy efficiency as part of decision making, both in government sector as well as in the enterprise sector. India set up the Petroleum Conservation Research Association way back in 73, 74, 75, when the oil price hike took place. The mention of energy efficiency in government documents were actually there in the mid-60s, the Fuel Policy Committee report, for instance. So the government, in a way, started off reasonably well and built some capacity. We introduced energy audits in Indian industry as part of a voluntary kind of an approach way back in the late 70s, early 80s. So the Indian government has actually drawn on international practices for quite some time, but they could do a lot more. And certainly the government could learn from the book. But as I said, my audience is really the consumer, the end user. And the last point is on efficiency is everybody's business. It is very decentralized. It depends on the action taken by individuals, action taken by industry, action taken by transport operators, action taken by utility management. So it's very decentralized and everyone has a responsibility. So this book would appeal to all of them, the entire energy consuming part of the population, which is everybody really.
And do you feel that by 2030, what radical changes do you think India could take? Because we're wondering, they say that by 2030, we're going to run out of groundwater, quite a lot of things. And also, obviously, global warming is, so what are the things that the Indian government, because Vikas Sharma is in policy, I really wanted to ask you, what do you personally feel? What are the concrete steps that we could take as individuals? So not just the government, but what can we do individually at home? And what could the government probably focus on to, to sensitize just normal everyday people?
Is that question for me or is it for Vikas?
For you.
Well, there's a lot that one could do. And see, individually, one needs to be aware of our actions in terms of how we use energy. See, energy efficiency can be implemented broadly in two ways. One is really in terms of our value systems, to do without, so that we can avoid using energy if the need is such. It's a kind of I won't say a sacrifice, but it's a kind of belt tightening. Yes. But the other, which I would propose, would be the efficient use of energy by using efficient devices. Lighting, for instance. Efficiency of an incandescent bulb is hardly 3 to 5%. 95% of the energy goes out as waste, as heat. But now you have LEDs, light emitting diodes, which will save you about 75% energy. So this is one example. You can use renewables, solar for heating, for water heating. It's a technology which is very well available. So there are a number of end users and practices that one can adopt, which save you 30, 40% energy as an individual. Industry can also adopt a whole lot of methods. They're already doing what is known as first aid measures, which save you energy. They need to move beyond first aid measures and look at integrative energy designs and so on and so forth. But one major measure, which I think I'll just mention, which I think is important between now and 2030, is what the government could help initiate. And that is coal and the use of coal.
Yes.
You see, very, very quickly, if one were to look at the fact that since pre-industrial era to today, the world's temperature has gone up by 1 degree centigrade. The world is heated up by 1 degree centigrade. Almost 0.3 degrees is on account of one single source, and that is coal, and the gas emissions from coal. So coal use needs to be reduced. We need to transit from coal, and we need to focus on the major coal consuming sector, which is the power sector. We have almost 200 gigawatts or 200,000 megawatts of coal capacity in the country.
Yes.
India is the second largest producer of coal in the world after China. Now, out of the 200 gigawatts, there are 50 to 60 gigawatts, or 50 to 60,000 megawatts of coal-fired boilers, which could be retired.
Yes.
So the government can have a program to retire them rather than use them. But not simply retire them, because when you retire a coal-fired power plant, you also have an impact on the social fabric of that place. People lose their jobs. We have to look at just transition and to ensure that people are not affected. And the way to do that is to repurpose these power plants, convert these power plants to solar systems. It can be done. So repurposing of coal-fired power plants as a part of decommissioning the power plants, working out the cost and benefits, and then going ahead and implementing it would be a very major contributor to reducing greenhouse gas emissions, as far as the government could do. There are many other measures, but basically this is an important measure.
I wanted to ask you about solar power, because it's the first thing that the layman would think of when they want to be more energy efficient and greener. But why do people believe, is it true that it's very expensive? Is it true that it's not viable, or is this just a fallacy?
Well, it was expensive in the 70s and 80s when it was just beginning out. But today, solar power is cheaper than coal-fired power systems. Today in India, we have large grid-connected solar power, which is supplying power to the grid at costs which are less than what a coal-fired power plant would cost. Definitely is cheaper than fossil fuels such as oil or gas. So solar power is no longer that costly as it used to be. However, solar power is intermittent. You don't get solar energy 24 hours of the day, but demand is continuous. So supply to meet demand must ensure that it is always there. And with solar power by itself or wind by itself will not be sufficient to meet the demand. So you have to have what is known as balancing power. The balancing power could be hydro, it could be coal, but we have to ensure that this coal which is used is done in a very efficient manner. So there are technologies which now produce electricity from coal far more efficiently than what is being currently done. And those technologies are now available, ultra supercritical and so on. But coming back to solar power, there are two types of solar power broadly. One is grid-connected, large-scale, field-erected solar power. And the other is what one can do on a decentralized basis, that is rooftop solar power and so on. And today, the policies of the government of India, especially the state governments, is very proactive as far as decentralized solar power is concerned. I'd like to end here by saying that India plans to add 175 gigawatts of solar, of renewable energy by 2022, by next year. And we are well on our way to doing that. And we plan to add 450 gigawatts by the year 2030, and hopefully we should be able to meet that. But there is a lot of work to be done. It's not, it's easy to enunciate a policy, but to implement requires a whole lot of stakeholders to come together.
Okay, so here we bring in Vikas Sharma because he is a seasoned public policy maker and a very important person, so in this policy game, the layman often thinks, Vikas, that the government makes a lot of policies and, they said they would, for instance, ban, single-use plastics, but then they come up with giving out, contracts for millions of rupees or dollars for coal mining and things like that. So what is the Indian government, planning for the next 5 years? Are they going to actually implement these policies? Why do they make so many policies and then, often they don't really implement them? What are the reasons behind it? Is it sort of the industrialists who don't sort of comply? Is it just difficult to move this entire economy around to change the way that people, use electricity? And of course, like hydropower projects are so criticized because of the, the humanitarian impact that they have. So how are you dealing with this whole policy ball of worms, if I may?
Thanks, Ela. To begin with, I just when I heard the topic, so I just want to begin with a saying of Mahatma Gandhi ji. He said once that there is enough on the earth for everybody's need, but not enough for everybody's greed. So basically, we have to understand the fact, when you talk about, having the policies, obviously, to address the, be it a global warming or a climate change issues. And obviously, parallelly, we must think that we have to always talk about the development part, because India is a developing country. And so we have to think on those aspects as well, that how to create the infrastructure for our people of the country. And we are the largest democracy, democracy in the world. And basically, India is a very different country. Every 100 kilometers, we change the language, geographical demands, environmental demands also changes. So it's not like government is not taking initiatives. And obviously, we have a structure of state governments and the central governments here as well. So sometimes it varies, because obviously when the central government makes some policies, maybe it is not best suited or fitted when that comes to few state governments. So that happens in few cases. It's not like everywhere. So there are challenges for sure. But yes, we must talk about the positive aspects. And government has come up in last, if you talk about a decade, so come up with a very out-of-box policies, and that is addressing to that demand. And that is addressing to that, to the problem of actually global warming or climate change. I just recollect a program. I was called for a program on NDTV. So I was sitting before and with one of the co-panelists. So she was just mentioning, because she has been working on this topic for so long, for good 25, 30 years. So she said, like when earlier, a decade back, when she used to visit people, policymaker, asking them about the issues and talking them, taking the steps, making policies to curb and address the problem of be it air pollution, be it environmental issues, global warming. Then she said, everybody is saying, why you're talking about it? There is nothing called, any climate change issues, any global warming issues. What is air pollution? We never heard about it. Why you are talking about such issues, which is not important? So better you, just take few issues which is more attractive to have a program and to talk about. So, but now it's actually good, like the programs is happening, the TV channels, the newspaper, the policymakers, they're talking about it. And now we are actually witnessing that, the biggest, the main political parties, they are having, a particular columns, particular policies, proposed policies in their election manifesto. So that means now actually we have understood the problem, that how crucial and critical the global warming issues are. So that is, now actually, I think the positive part, at least now we understood the problem. So once we understood the problem, there are the challenges, then for sure that we'll always make policies to curb that and to address these problems. So, when you talk about next last 6-7 years, so government has come up with many out-of-box policies like Swachh Bharat Abhiyan. It has become the biggest Jan Andolan in the world now. And that with the help of the policies government has initiated, like India has become 100% open defecation free. So that's sort of an achievement that we have achieved. I still remember one honorable Prime Minister shared a story that when obviously the government is talking about the benefits of having the toilets in the premises, or obviously stopping open defecation and all, and what is the issues of hygiene, etc., related to that. So there was a lady in the remotest area in the state of Chhattisgarh, the old lady of somewhere around 70-80 years of age. So she was, the only basically, you would say the wealth she was carrying is the animals. With the help of them, she was actually doing the farming and, earning the breads for her household. But yes, after listening to Honorable Prime Minister and the benefits of, having the toilets, the hygiene level, and what are the demerits of open defecation. So she sold, because obviously she was not in a position to have that sort of a wealth that she can actually build the toilets in her premises, in her house, near her house. So she actually got out and sold those animals and got some money and get the toilet made in a house. So that's sort of a, I think impact on the policies is happening on the ground. So there are a lot of things is happening, as you also mentioned, that the now government is coming up with the policy for single use plastic ban. So that is again a welcome step. And, we must appreciate that India is the only country in the world which is having the mandatory CSR spending provision for a selective group of corporates, which is, there is obviously a segregation, there is a law for that. So in which there is a Schedule 7 that includes on which actually social activities that you can spend those corporate social responsibility fund. Environment is one of the sections in that. And we must appreciate that, till 2020, more than 50,000 crores has been spent on all these social activities. So these are the policies I think government is coming up, and I think in future we'll be going to benefit more with that. And for sure, government is always open, as we have been witnessing that, whenever that comes to any problems, that what sort of policies will be there. And now government is trying to consolidate the state government so that, we can make a consensus that on the basis of like what state is having what sort of a problem, so we can make a consolidated decision that will be helpful for all.
Yeah, I'd like to actually bring in Mr. Padmanabhan here and, ask him what he would like to say to you as a policy maker. What would you suggest that we could do differently in India right away? Just looking at, what are we going to be expecting in the next few years? What is the kind of climatic, situation, and how can we circumvent disasters? I mean, there are deaths happening all over the world from flooding, etc. Are there any inputs that you could give?
I would like to build on a point that Vikas very rightly made, that policy is the responsibility both of the center as well as the state. And one would have to have both of them working in unison. We would have to, as far as energy is concerned, and particularly energy efficiency is concerned, have to move energy efficiency from the center to the states. And that's probably one area where we could do a little better. Some states have done well, some of the states have yet to do much more than what is required in the efficiency arena. So that would be one area that we could look at, so that you have programs at the state level which reflect the policies, mandates, directives from the center.
Which
I would also like to,
Sorry.
yes, go.
Which states do you feel are doing great in the sector? I mean,
Well, I don't want to mention names, but the Alliance for Energy Efficient Economy, an entity that I helped start about 10 years back, is an NGO in Delhi, actually does a scorecard for the various states and how well states are doing. And they have developed this scorecard in partnership with or in collaboration with the American Council for Energy Efficient Economy, which has a similar scorecard for the states in the United States. And as per their scorecard, some of the states like Maharashtra and Andhra Pradesh have done well, and so has Gujarat certainly. And some of the other states in the Northeast area could probably do a little better. But it's not comparing one state with another as much as seeing whether these states are meeting their full potential in terms of energy efficiency.
yes, Vikas, you will say.
Yeah. Yes, please.
Yeah, you were going to say something and then I just asked about the states, so which state was performing best. You were going to come in with something, please.
Okay, so no, it's not like, I think, Bella, we must understand the thing. It's like we should not say anything is doing great or anybody is putting less efforts, because we understand it is in the situation that everybody, like even state government or a central government or individual like us, everybody has to put their efforts and ensure that, yes, in a little way even, that we must contribute on this problem, because it is not created by the government.
No, it's
It
not.
is actually, the problem is actually created by us. And every individual is responsible for actually, the origin, the occurrence of this problem. So why not we actually, every individual should contribute in finding out the solution and curbing it down.
Yes, my, the reason why I asked was to look for inspiration and just probably guidance. So when I look at a person who's zero waste, I get inspired to stop buying single-use plastics. In that way, I wanted to, yes, sir.
Just a quick point of where, if some action takes place in one state, how it spreads in India. We in India have this very good tendency of learning from others and adopting it and adapting it. For instance, and this is just one of many examples, cogeneration is a way in which one could generate heat and electricity in an industry and do it very efficiently. It's a technology which is very well known, and sugar industry is the one which kind of co-generates, and so many other industries too, but sugar industry is traditional. So way back in the 90s, in the state of Tamil Nadu, they came out with a very efficient way of co-generating and selling part to the utility. This was actually modeled after a concept which was followed in other countries. But in Tamil Nadu, they went ahead and did it. And that was picked up. And in quick time, Karnataka and then the northern states like UP, the sugar growing states, and Maharashtra also started co-generating. So from a very low base of just 100 megawatts in 1993-94, today we are over 10,000 megawatts of co-generated power. So this is an example of how states and entities in states pick up good practices and take it forward. The green building movement is another very good example. We started in a very, very small way in the year 2003 with 20,000 square feet of green space in one building in Andhra Pradesh and Hyderabad, known as the Green Business Center of the Confederation of Indian Industry. That particular building was very efficient by international standards and won a platinum award for meeting certain levels of efficiency in terms of water use, in terms of energy use, and so on and so forth. But that quickly spread, and the Indian Green Building Council, which was set up to manage this and to monitor it and to assess it, actually ended up being responsible for initiating something like 10 billion square feet today. There are almost 6,000 buildings which are green, and many of them are platinum. So it has spread largely due to the efforts of local governments as well as entrepreneurs as well as the building community. So these things spread, good practices spread, and there are many other examples in the power sector. There are examples and so on. So essentially, the state and the center need to be in constant dialogue. They need to kind of share best practices, and then they need to learn from one another, and then they need to implement what makes best for their situation. This is as far as states are concerned. The same thing is with individuals. Today, individuals too can learn from one another. So that's what the basic idea of energy collaboration is all about.
And I had one last question. We just have about 7 or 8 minutes, but the question of e-vehicles. So e-vehicles are going to be very big, obviously, in the next 5-10 years. Probably we'll all own an e-vehicle. But people have this question, the batteries are supposed to be a bit, it's a gray area. So where does the lithium come from? And so what is your take on this? Is it still, because a lot of people counter that it's the same amount of environmental degradation involved in creating a battery versus having a fossil fuel car. So.
Well, e-vehicles is being introduced in the country. It is taking baby steps. There are issues, no doubt, with any new introduction, and it'll take some time before they get accepted by the public. But is it required? Certainly, because the transport sector, and I didn't get a chance to mention about the transport sector, consumes a large portion of oil, which is imported, and it also contributes to carbon emissions. So the transport sector is important, and e-vehicles is the way to go. Now, e-vehicles depends on storage batteries, and storage technology is evolving again. And lithium is a product that we don't have in our country. Lithium is the new oil, and we have to, resort to import of lithium from, let's say, Latin America, or maybe from China, and so on and so forth. So that is certain issue because that impacts the energy security of the country. So we have to kind of work with that particular constraint. But the broader question is that will we see a radical change by 2030 in the way in which our nation produces and uses energy? See, I began with this question: where would India's energy journey lead us in the next 30 years? And now the question is, would India be able to rely on e-vehicles and solar and hydropower and nuclear energy in the future? I think that's an important question to ask. And the answer is that in the short to medium terms, we would have to rely on fossil fuels and wait for these technologies, which I just mentioned, whether it's e-vehicles or solar or advanced hydrogen or so on, to evolve and be mature. So we would have to have that kind of a process where these are developed, but at the same time rely on fossil fuels. But we need to use fossil fuels very, very efficiently. I mentioned the coal sector. We need to transit away from coal. And whatever coal we do use, because we have to use coal, because coal is our mainstay, we have to do it in a very efficient way. But the more important point, and this is probably my last point, is that energy efficiency could be the bridge that will move us from a world dominated by fossil fuels to a world dominated by renewables. And this bridge is very important because this bridge is the first fuel, as I mentioned in my book. I know they can see it, but it's mentioned in the book. It's the first fuel. And the first fuel, because we have saved more energy through energy efficiency measures than we get from oil and coal and electricity and so on and so forth. It's not the fifth fuel. The Honorable ex-President of India, the late Abdul Kalam, mentioned at one point that energy efficiency was the fifth fuel of India, because he's one who kind of transcended much of the thinking in this area. But when many of us started looking at what he said and started doing the back of the envelope calculation, we found that, man, it's not just the fifth fuel, it's probably the first fuel. And it's something that has to be given importance. So it is the bridge that connects us from a world dominated by coal and oil to a world dominated by renewables.
Thank you so much. It's been so insightful. I'm going to read your book. I haven't had a chance yet. Thanks to Shabri curating this, I got to know about the book. I'm going to promote it like crazy because I think you're such a great mind, and I'm sure the book is a gold mine for a lot of people who don't yet know. And Vikas, I just wanted to ask you, I think we have 1 minute or 2 minutes left. Just e-vehicles, because everyone is so, passionate about the idea of owning a Tesla. How easy is it going to be realistically for a person to be able to own an e-vehicle and be able to travel around India? How long will it take for us to have the charging stations all over? Do you feel?
Yeah, certainly it will be a lucrative trip, one, and everybody is looking forward to. And that's great, like, in 21st century that we are thinking about out of the box things. Startups are certainly creating a roadmap and obviously, getting us new way to actually, find out the solution of the problem. So this could be the one thing, which is certainly for sure creating an attraction, but yes, giving us a new way out. So, quickly, I just want to mention that, when we talk about India, it is the second largest startup market, that we are producing the highest number of startups, second highest number of startups in the country. So we must promote out of the things ideas to curb the problem. Likewise, I come across with very brilliant ideas few startups are doing. Like one startup, it is we are every year, like specifically in Delhi, we are facing the problem of air pollution. Everybody is talking about the stubborn burning and all. So there was one startup. So what they have come up with an idea. So it was procuring the the stubborn from the farmers downside, and then providing it to the some power plants there, and yet they are using it actually to generate the power. And obviously some are using it for the cold storage system, and providing a good cold storage for 72 hours for the vegetable storage. And also, few startups, they are making the boxes out of those stubborn, and then providing it to Amazon and other sort of e-commerce companies. So that's sort of a thing that we must come up, and obviously we'll make a universal decision that we must contribute in our own way to curb this problem. And this is certainly the time that we must address that this is the problem, and we are here to follow obviously our government's policy and individual level also to contribute to address the problems.
Thanks so much, both of you. Thank you so much to pragatiE, Vichaar, and Shabri. It's been such a pleasure talking to you both. I know that the time didn't do justice to your vast knowledge, but I hope to follow both of you. We all hope to follow you and follow your journey. And we wish all of us a very cool climate, I think. Namaskar.
Namaskar. Thank you very much. Thank you, Vikas. Thank you, Ela.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, Shabri and team. Thank you.